All right, everyone, welcome in to episode 62 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. This is recorded on the last day of January, January 31st, 2023. In a few hours, it'll be the 1st of February. So, congratulations, you've all made it through the first month of the new year. And we now know in America our Super Bowl matchup. I'm Gustavo, trying to go to the United States. Joining me as always from down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing today?
Great, great. Another rainy night here in Brazil. Also, as
Yep, been very rainy here as well.
yeah, I guess we both weather is kind of similar these days. And but anyways, to join you again to another episode. A lot to talk about here in Brazil. A lot to talk about the Brazilian Super Cup, all the controversies, all the drama, and talk about state championships as well. But definitely going to start talking about the championship weekend. And I guess let's start with the NFC because that was the kind of the least fun match we can say.
Yeah, I mean, this was just an unfair match. It wasn't like that at first, Like I think like it was going to be a really good defensive match. Um, yeah, you had the strength of the Eagles with their running attack and Jalen Hurts in the season that he has had, going up against his 49ers team with guys like Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, and obviously the resurgent rookie quarterback from Brock Purdy. But early on in this game, Purdy uh, injures his UCL up in his forearm, so he can't throw the ball after he injures it. They have to pull him to bring in Josh Johnson, who literally had never taken a snap in a playoff game. Of course, he wasn't very good because he just didn't have that type of experience. And then he gets a concussion in the third quarter, and literally the last half of this game, the 49ers didn't have anyone who could throw the ball. And that really kind of told the story of the game because the 49ers defensively, I thought, played really, really well. Jalen Hurts, I thought, struggled in this game. They really contained A.J. Brown really well. I believe he only had like 4 catches in this game. Um, they they really weren't throwing the ball. I mean, Jalen Hurts in this game, only 15 to 25 for 121 yards. The 49ers defense did everything they possibly could. And I'll say this too, Christian McCaffrey, I thought did everything he could too. His touchdown run was immaculate. And he really was a one-man show there in the second half. But he had no chance because the Eagles knew that the 49ers couldn't throw it. And that's just kind of the story of the day right there. And there's really no one's fault. You don't plan to lose. You got to keep in mind, Brock Purdy was the third quarterback for the 49ers. You don't plan to lose one quarterback in any given year, let alone losing 4 like the 49ers did. They literally ran out of quarterbacks. And there's nothing Kyle Shanahan could have done about that. There's literally nothing. And really nothing to be ashamed of if you're San Francisco because you just had a very unfortunate series of events happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like coming the off season, Kyle Shanahan has to make a decision about what's because the more he keeps, this uncertainty, this, let's see how we do in quarterback. The other talented player in the offense get, gets older, gets beat up, and gets less productive. So how long Christian McCaffrey, Debo Sanders, and George Kittle are going to be productive and effective as they are right now? I think Kyle Shanahan needs to go in the offseason. I need to find healthy, reliable quarterback. Period. They need to trade any part they can. Of course, they're not going to trade Kittle or Sanders or McCaffrey, but they have to see the options.
Yeah, and you got to wonder who that's going to be. Could that be a Derek Carr? I know you've been on the Tom Brady train. I don't see that happening at all. I know Brock Purdy. They said he'd be sidelined for 6 months, but there's no guarantee that he's going to be your quarterback when you come back. I mean, Trey Lance literally was a guy that you gave up a lot of assets for to get him at the 3rd pick a couple of years ago. So you got to figure if he's healthy again and ready to go, you got to give him another shot, right? He should. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is on his way out of town. He'll be a trade bait for someone and I think he'll be a starter somewhere still next year, um, or at the very least, a really top tier backup for some team. Uh, you know, the 49ers are not in a terrible position, but definitely the uncertainty of are your quarterbacks being injury prone? That has to make you nervous moving forward because, as you said, when you have guys like Fred Warner and Nick Bosa and just the dominant defense that you had this year, and in combination with the McCaffreys and Kittles of the world, you really have to you, you have to kind of solve the Rubik's cube. And unfortunately, the Rubik's cube fell apart for the 49ers here in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Kyle Shanahan definitely deserves a lot of praise for what he's been doing for the past few seasons, keeping the Niners competitive with so many injuries, especially the quarterback position. But at some point, you gotta come after him to be like, okay, Trey Lance might not be um, the solution right now. He got injured, so he can wait a few years. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't seem as healthy as you wish, and maybe you can get a good trade and get some, parts, other. But you need to go on the market and be reliable quarterback. I feel like Tom Brady may be a solution. I mean, as much as I feel like Tom Brady probably wants this position a lot because let's face it, don't everybody, every kid who goes play sports, either in the US or in Brazil, have a team be like, hey, I want to be a San Francisco quarterback. Because of course you want to go to the NFL and be successful, but there's a team you always want to go, especially your childhood team. Definitely that plays in the back of Tom Brady's mind to be like, hey, maybe I can retire on the team that I root when I was a kid. He can might be lobby for it, but that's true. Like there's other options in the market. Derek Carr could be a better fit because he's younger and he can be healthier.
Well, you know who else could be on the market soon that grew up in Northern California, literally played college football across the bay from Santa Clara and San Francisco, and also was picked over by the San Francisco 49ers in his draft. One, Aaron Rodgers. Could that be a possibility? Would the 49ers want Aaron Rodgers? Could they take on that contract?
Yeah, and it'll be a baggage deal, contract, attitude, drama, not being committed. It's a package deal. You know what you're getting. Do you want a committed, focused, older, reliable quarterback or a talented but snarky, not focused, attitude quarterback? What do you prefer?
Yeah, well, I will say this: that would be easily the most talented roster he's ever been with. I mean, it'd be more talented than any roster he's ever had in Green Bay, because Green Bay never surrounded him with elite outside of Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams was the one guy. And I know Jordy Nelson for a while was really good. You had Randall Cobb, who was pretty good, but overall, having Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk and Jordan Jennings, I mean, that's a good core. Um, I, you know, I think Rodgers would fit in really well there with the 49ers. And as much criticism as I've given him for the Packers situation, I feel like the 49ers have a much stronger culture with John Lynch as their GM and Kyle Shanahan as the head coach. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers would necessarily have to go out there and save the 49ers every week. He could kind of transition himself into more of a game manager, making big throws when necessary, kind of like how we saw towards the end of Peyton Manning's time in Denver. But he can still go up there and throw huge numbers, like what happened initially when Peyton Manning went to Denver. And I really do think that Aaron Rodgers in San Francisco could be a real possibility. And I think that's much more likely than it's much more likely than Tom Brady ending up in San Francisco. I mean, I still know where Tom Brady's going to end up in overall through the next couple of weeks as we go through the beginning of NFL free agency and just seeing how this unfolds. But I think overall for the San Francisco 49ers, a pretty successful season. all things considered, going through all these quarterback injuries. Just unfortunately, they just had too much to overcome there, and you know, it's just the deal. It is the deal. But on the other side of this, with the winning team, the Philadelphia Eagles, you know, I honestly did not think they looked that good in this game. I know they won 31-7. Obviously, defense played really well, but that was partially due to the 49ers not having a quarterback. On the other side of the ball, I really was not impressed with their ability to throw the ball. I mean, think about this: the biggest passing play in this game wasn't really a catch. It's just the refs missed the fact that Devontae Smith dropped the ball on the ground. I mean, AJ Brown was very quiet throughout this entire game, and got literally 4 catches, 28 yards. And I'm going to need to see a lot more. I mean, think about this: the Philadelphia Eagles ran the ball 44 times in this game for 148 yards. That's only 3 yards a carry. When you're going up against Patrick Mahomes here in 2 weeks, I just don't think that's going to be good enough. I think they got to spread the ball downfield. 4.8 yards per passing completion isn't going to get it done against the Chiefs.
And you have to wonder how Jalen Hurts' health might also be in place, because he doesn't look as sharp as he was, let's say, by mid regular season. So is 2 weeks enough for Jalen Hurts to be 100%? Because for what I briefly watched the game, and also what I heard, he doesn't look 100%. He looks like what, 70, 75%.
Yeah. And I
So
think also the other question to ask here as well about the Eagles: did they have an extremely easy road to the Super Bowl? I mean, the
oh yeah,
NFC. I mean, we all know going into this year that the NFC was going to be the much weaker of the two conferences, and I think that came to fruition with how much weaker the NFC is versus the AFC. And think about their two playoff games. They literally had the Giants, who were upstart team. They didn't really think they were going to be here, and clearly their inexperience showed when they went into Philadelphia. And then the 49ers, the only other team in the NFC that really could have given them a run for their money there. I mean, I guess them and the Cowboys would be the two teams I think that would have really given them a run for it this year. Um, the 49ers disintegrated, followed their own. So the Eagle, compared to what the Chiefs had to go through on the AFC side, I don't know how battle tested these Eagles really are.
and to your point, Nick, do you think that the real competitive side of the playoffs was the AFC, and people saying the AFC is already kind of not? I mean, a lot can happen in 2 weeks in Arizona. I'm not saying the game's already defined, but I think we can all agree the playoffs in the AFC looks better, looks more competitive than the NFC. To people saying that, hey, the AFC is a true competitive NFL, because the NFC. Let's analyze the teams that went to the playoffs, shall we? Let's start with the teams that were eliminated in the wild card weekend. Minnesota Vikings. They had a good regular season. They won the division, but they were falling apart by the last 4 weeks. They almost lost to the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, they had one of the greatest comebacks in the NFL history, but it was to the Indianapolis Colts. I mean,
Right.
that says enough. The Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks were in a rebuilding year with Geno Smith, and they made it to the playoffs. And you already mentioned, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were under 500 team with a really weak NFC South division that had 3 teams rebuilding, 3 in the same division. So it was the least. So if comparing that to the AFC, let's compare that to the AFC. The Miami Dolphins, I know they were the weaker. That's why they were the 7th seed, and they had a lot of issues with injury, especially with quarterback. They missed Tua and Teddy Bridgewater, but they gave a hard time to the Bills.
Yep.
All three wild card games in the NFC were blowouts. All 3 AFC games were nail biters that were like a 1-possession game.
Yeah, I got to keep in mind too, the Ravens only lost to the Bengals by a possession without Lamar Jackson. They really could have won that game if they don't fumble in their own red zone.
Yeah, and the Chargers also lost in a field goal. So all three AFC wildcard games were one possession, and all NFC wildcard games were blowouts. That said
Yeah,
something.
and the trend continues to the next week. The Chiefs and Chargers, or Chiefs and Jaguars, that was a one possession game. Bengals Bills was a blowout, which was kind of surprising. Of course, Eagles Giants was a blowout, and 49ers Cowboys was obviously a very competitive game, but it was a very ugly game, a very low scoring one.
Yeah, but I think the wild card tells more of a story about a conference than the divisional round. Because the divisional round, then your last four teams, then you know blowouts, it's less inevitable. But when it comes to wild card, where seven teams is like a good portion of your conference, you can see how tough it is to win and in the AFC, and how the NFC doesn't is not the best, but is the healthier or the last weak, the least weak.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right, and just the vast talent difference. I mean, the best team, one of the top four teams in the NFC at the end of the year was the Lions. When you think about that, the Lions, yeah, the Lions wouldn't have been in the top 8 of the AFC at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean the Lions did not make the playoffs because the Rams couldn't kick a field goal.
Yeah, and because the Lions started 1-6 too, they kind of dug themselves into a hole to begin the year. But I mean, the Lions were frankly outside the 49ers and Eagles might have been the third or fourth best team in the NFC by the end. Um, and obviously they weren't there to make noise.
Don't you think this plays a factor in future quarterbacks? Derek Carr. Let's see, like how many good quarterbacks have to make a choice in this offseason? Derek Carr, Tom Brady, even Lamar Jackson. We're still up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And who else?
Perhaps Aaron Rodgers, maybe.
Aaron Rodgers. From this four quarterbacks, three are in the NFC. I bet they don't want to go to the AFC. That's why probably the Titans are going to have a hard time finding a quarterback. Who wants to go to the AFC and face Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen and Herbert and Trevor Lawrence when you can go to the NFC and face a 49ers team with Brock Purdy or Josh Johnson or Daniel Jones or Dak Prescott. It's a really disparity.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that. And teams like the Colts, like the Titans, even like the Texans are. That's why really our number one hope for a good quarterback in the future is going to be drafting one. At least the Texans are in the number 2 pick, so they'll be able to get someone. The Colts, I imagine, will try to trade up. I would love for the Titans to try to trade up, but I seriously doubt they're going to. But yeah, we're kind of back in quarterback no man's land right now, and I don't see any way that any of these teams are winning anything anytime soon, considering our problems at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I think for NFC teams can be a good time of fighting a quarterback. The tricky thing is, if let's say Aaron Rodgers, how much the Packers want to trade Aaron Rodgers, because there's an unspoken rule that you don't trade your quarterback to a fellow conference team. Like when you trade, let's say, it's rare to happen. I think the most recent one was Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams. They were in the same conferences and they trade quarterbacks, but this is really rare. Like you always try to ship in a trade to the other conference so you don't have to face them in a playoffs.
Yeah, but we'll see if they have a choice. Because I think the Packers they're going to have choice. Because I mean, like the Jets are going to want him. The Dolphins, I could see maybe trying to go for him. But the Titans want Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. Honestly, I don't think Aaron Rodgers would necessarily fix all of our problems. To be honest with you, we still got to fix the offensive line. Who would he throw to? But there's several teams out there that would want a Rodgers, that would want a Derek Carr, and I really do think like places like the Jets, maybe the 49ers, maybe the Dolphins are the spots that these quarterbacks are going to want to go to. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. And certainly the 49ers might be at the forefront of this because as we saw, they literally were a master unit at the quarterback position. And that's really the only reason why they're not in the post Super Bowl. Because I think honestly, with a healthy quarterback, any one of the three, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, or Brock Purdy, I think they would have won Sunday. I think everyone else on that team played well enough to win that game. Uh,
But isn't
they
but isn't that the theme of 49ers for like what now 2 seasons? Like, isn't what they thought last season? Oh, if only our quarterback stay healthy, we could have been in the Super Bowl. Like, I mean, 1 season fine, two okay, but it comes to three season of the same issue. You gotta wonder, like, you have to address it.
Yes. Yes, you really do have to. I agree with that. You have to address it because you can't trust Jimmy G. You don't know what Trey Lance is going to be when he comes back. And I think that Trey Lance is the wild card here because that's the guy you invested in. Brock Purdy, he's literally your seventh round pick. You didn't give up anything to get him. Uh, but Trey Lance
Because
is,
now I think
yeah,
Brock Purdy now can, there'll be teams, interested in trade him. I mean, I don't know, like, or keep him as a backup and see what happens. But I mean, as you said, Brock Purdy was the wild card. Was the, you know, oh, we found him as Mr. Relevant, and now I think 49er fans wanted to win with him because it would have been just a feel good story, like from Mr. Irrelevant to Super Bowl champion. But sometimes, the NFL gods doesn't let good stories to happen.
yeah. I mean, it's like it reminds me of like TCU. Like how amazing would that have been going from 5-7 and being an underrated program to a national champion? You upset Michigan, and then you get slapped to reality by Georgia. Sometimes sports miracles don't happen, and it sucks when they don't. But you know that's life. And unfortunately, for the San Francisco 49ers, that was their life. But let's talk about the classic now. This the Sunday evening, and we were messaging each other back and forth throughout this ending. And I told you this. This was why we watch football right here between the Chiefs and the Bengals. We are now at the precipice of a great new rivalry between the Chiefs and the Bengals, and it was just amazing to watch. It was just the intensity. The further you got into the game, the bigger the stakes became, and it was just riveting television.
I mean, first of all, how good it is to have such a intense rivalry with two great quarterbacks from two franchises from like the heart of US, like Cincinnati, Ohio, and Kansas City, Missouri. Not New York, not LA, not Chicago, like Cincinnati and Kansas City. Like those are like go ahead.
Yeah, if you think about it, the NFL began in the Midwest. It began in Ohio, began in Illinois. The NFL's bread and butter is that Midwestern region. And as you said, to have Cincinnati and Kansas City have this rivalry, to have literally the mayors talking crap to each other, to
Oh
have
my
the Bengals come out and say, this is Burrowhead Stadium. And then Travis Kelsey comes out and says, Burrowhead my ass. Just this whole rivalry is incredible.
I mean, first of all, to the Cincinnati mayor, the only thing I'll say to him, leave the trash talk to the players and to the coaches after the game. Mayor Aftab, I imagine you're a good public official, doing a good job for your city, but don't give fuel to the other team. Don't give fuel to as trash talk because that probably gave Patrick Mahomes feel, even though he was limping, to maybe play one of his best games of the game of his life.
Oh, absolutely. Also, I do want to give a shout out to our listener, Bruno Slonik. Says it's our favorite show, and he asked us, "Did you guys see that they colored the Empire State Building with the Eagles colors? So disrespectful to New York." I should have put this in. I should mention this while we're talking about the Eagles game because I saw this and I thought it was absolutely hilarious that the Empire State Building was lit up in the Philadelphia Eagles colors. Because like the Empire State Building said they were going to do this beforehand, that they were going to like light up their building in every single for both of the conference title winners. But come on, New York, like this is the Giants' country right here in Manhattan. and you can't be flying the Eagles colors. You can't be lining up in green. It's insane. That's like if they lit up the Batman building in Alabama red, Alabama crimson.
No,
If they
yeah,
went,
like the light in red, like in Crimson Tide of red, the Sun Sphere.
yeah, or light up in red the guy like the walkway in Gatlinburg, like Anakesia.
Anarchista,
Like if
oh, Anarchista.
yeah, like if they lit that up crimson red or Georgia red or Kentucky blue, like you just can't do that. It's insane. I don't care if it's New York City, and you are the biggest city in the country and all that. You have to respect your local populace, the local fan base, and most of those people there. I know there's some Jets fans there who probably found it funny, but the Giants fans are the biggest fan base there, and I can only imagine how mad they were because of that.
It's just probably the people who run the Empire State wants to appraise social media and visitors from all around the world. But as you perfectly said, it's still New York, it's still Giants country, and you still have to imagine if the Boston Red Sox wins the ALCS. Are they going to put it red and blue? Of course not.
Oh yeah, could you imagine if they did that?
Oh my God. There'll be riots. I feel like football, people will be mad, but baseball, there'll be riots. I wonder if Bruno's like you're still watching. What will be your reaction if the Empire State Building would line up red and white if the Boston Red Sox, let's say, wins the ALCS? I mean, I wonder.
It would be a nightmare.
You'll be a
I mean, I
nightmare.
can only think about like what if like the Knicks were in the NBA Finals and they're playing like the Lakers or some Lakers and like the Lakers beat them and they lit it up in purple and gold. I'll only use that example because Lakers and Knicks are playing right now. But
Yeah, yeah. And we're gonna talk about that later. LeBron is about here milestone, but I mean, I feel like, and it's a good topic. I mean, let's see. I will leave for the off season because we have so much
okay,
things.
Bruno, we have a response. He would go there and egg the place.
I think he would be the most civilized. There will be other people not.
That'd be a lot of money. Egg prices are very high. I literally did a news story about this like 2 weeks ago. So
I guess we have to bring Bruno. I think we have to bring the Brazilian eggs. Then we have to get the Brazilian eggs to do in Empire State. But going back to the Cincinnati to the Chiefs win over the Bengals, I feel like a lot of credit to the Chiefs defense because especially in the second half because they were finding a way to stop Burrow because as much and we can gonna discuss about the Bengals defense and the penalties and all the referee which was disgraceful. The Chiefs defense really stopped Burrow in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. Burrow was inefficient, almost got a pick six.
yeah, I mean, and here's the issue, and this is what cost the Buffalo Bills. They so the Bengals have 3 injuries on the offensive line, and they had it throughout this entire postseason. The Buffalo Bills could not get to Joe Burrow. They couldn't upset him. They could not make him uncomfortable back there. The Chiefs actually could. And that was the difference. And this is the reason why the Buffalo Bills can't win a Super Bowl. They can't get to the Super Bowl. It's because their lines of scrimmage just does not allow them to get there. And the Chiefs, everyone thinks about the Chiefs as this high score and high flying team, but over the past couple of years, they have gotten way better at defense. Because remember, the first year that Mahomes was really, really good, 2018, the reason why they didn't win the Super Bowl that year against the Patriots, Super Bowl and get to the Super Bowl, remember, they couldn't stop Tom Brady. They could not stop Tom Brady and the Patriots in that Super Bowl, or the AFC title game, rather. And it wasn't until they took the defensive side more seriously that they actually won a Super Bowl. And that side of the ball has improved a lot over the years for Kansas City, and that really helped them in this game. Getting 2 picks off of Joe Burrow is very clutch. Not to mention that the Bengals did not run the ball effectively in this game. Joe Burrow was the leading rusher for Cincinnati at 30 yards. Joe Mixon only ran the ball for 19. Samaje Perine only ran the ball for 22. You know, the Bengals they'd like to mix it up. They like to run the ball, and they just were not able to in this football game. And that's a huge credit to the Kansas City Chiefs because even though Cincinnati's passing game is very, very good, you still got to have some balance. And the Chiefs were able to force them to not have the balance that they wanted. Now, on the other side, Kansas City also didn't really have that balance. They only ran for 42 yards themselves, so it really became a quarterback duel. And you really have to give it up to Patrick Mahomes in this game. I mean, you can tell he was not 100%. He didn't have his traditional mobility, but man, he stood in that pocket and he delivered time and time and time again. The second touchdown he had was just beautiful. He's standing there in the pocket, kind of rolling up into it, and just delivers into an absolutely tight window. You know, I don't know if you have. Did you have Tony Romo's commentary?
Oh yeah, of course I have Tony Romo's comment. Definitely. I'm sorry, Paulo Antunes, Fernando Nardini. You guys are great broadcasters, but Tony Romo, I mean, another great broadcast from him.
I mean, a lot of people did not like it. I mean, a lot of people thought he was very much practically in love with Patrick Mahomes throughout this game. This dude really was
who wouldn't the way he played? Who wouldn't?
I mean, that is fair. I mean, he effectively might be the closest thing we've had to Michael Jordan in NFL. I mean, it is. I mean, the stuff he was doing out there was just insane. And on one leg, I mean that was a legacy game for Patrick Mahomes. I mean, we'll be talking when Patrick Mahomes retires one day. We'll be talking about remember in 2023 when he went out there and beat the Cincinnati Bengals with one leg. And really, outside of Travis Kelce, no elite receivers. I mean, Marquez Valdes-Scantling is pretty good, but he isn't elite. Right. You look at the rest of the roster. Sky Moore only had 3 catches. McCole Hardman only had 2 catches. Kadarius Toney only had 1 catch. I mean, he doesn't have necessarily. He doesn't Tyreek Hill anymore to throw to.
I know my friend Bruno Sonic's not gonna like this because gonna give him some painful memories. The Patrick Mahomes' performance remind me of Kurt Schilling's Game 5 in ALCS in 2004 with the the problem he had with the tendonitis and the bleeding on his foot in one leg. A great performance, great performance. And the Patrick Mahomes did the same. He was just unstoppable with one leg, and even when he had to play by the run game as the before the second to last before the call, he did some, he ran so effectively that he got the penalty that practically decided the game.
Yeah, we got to talk about the officiating here. And I'll say this. I don't think officiating necessarily determined the outcome of this game. Because here's the thing, that very last penalty was a penalty. Like, you can't hit the quarterback that late. He had literally 3 steps out of bounds. So that was a legitimate penalty. I will say this. I think there were some missed calls, perhaps on both sides. I think maybe more in favor of the Chiefs. I mean, you had that whole third down sequence there late in the third quarter where the Chiefs got a free play, and then they call Eli Alvin for the holding. But I'll say this, though, the Chiefs did not score there, so that ultimately did not matter that much.
But that I don't know if you mentioned that or not. The third down that was stopped by 4th down and then came back for another 3rd down because of a screw up by the referee. That was ridiculous. Like, that cannot happen. So stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of ironic too. They were in the state of Missouri. It kind of reminded me. There was a game in 1990 between the Colorado Buffaloes and Missouri Tigers, and there was a 5th down that happened in the 4th quarter, and Colorado ended up winning at Missouri because they got an extra play that they didn't deserve.
Oh yeah, so that was another 5th down in Missouri. I guess Missouri football games might have a 5th down.
Apparently.
But, I mean, we have to talk about how effective Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase duo is. It reminds me a lot of Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. How effective this duo is.
Yeah, I mean, think about that one catch that Chase had. So that 4th and 6 there early in the fourth
Yeah.
quarter. I mean, the gutsiness of that play call. I mean, you gotta love it. So, I mean, I was going
Yo,
nuts
it was
watching
so
that.
good.
And then the touchdown that Burrow had to T. Higgins. I mean, T. Higgins made a grown man catch on that one.
It's so crazy that I watch him play in high school football in Knoxville, and now he's playing in Cincinnati Bengals. It's just crazy how time
And big
flies
games.
in big
And
games.
very,
So
yeah.
crazy. I watched him lose when he was playing for Oak Ridge against Webb in a field goal game, in a game decided by a field goal. And now he's playing in the AFC Championship and also losing in a last second field goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a reminder that these guys come from everywhere, and including East Tennessee. So, I mean, it's just amazing to see his journey, and they'll be back. I mean, this Bengals Chiefs rivalry, this is far from the ending. Now, I'll say this: the Bengals will have to lick their wounds a little bit because this is the type of loss that if you're not careful, will hold you back for a couple of years because you were so close. That was such a heartbreaking, devastating loss. Sometimes we see a team like this struggle to get back, and you do have to be concerned about that. I think if you're Cincinnati,
I
but
think. Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the only thing that might I'll say make it harder is if Deshaun Watson somehow works in Cleveland because Pittsburgh's still in a rebuild. You know, Kenny Pickett, he can.
I think we might have lost Gus there for a second. So, yeah, but what he was going off of, I think going AFC North right now, I think the Bengals they're still going to be the cream of the crop there. I really have my doubts about Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. Obviously, moral reasons withstanding. He just doesn't look like anywhere close to the same quarterback that he used to be. Now, some of that was rust, and we'll see with a full off season what he has next year. But if I don't see, okay, I think he might be back now, Gus. Okay, I think he's working on himself. So I'll just go on a little Deshaun Watson soliloquy. If I don't see signs of the old Deshaun Watson coming by mid next year, then I don't think you're going to see it come back in Cleveland. And I think we'll officially know that the Haslam's wasted $245 million on Deshaun Watson, which would be insane. We'll see who, and obviously the Broncos also, are also hoping they didn't waste $230+ million on Russell Wilson. And we'll have to get into that a little bit later about the Broncos and their new head coaching hire, a familiar face coming back to the league. But, also in this game, you have to shout out Harrison Butker. Clutch kick there at the end. It almost looked like it was going to be a little bit short. It wasn't the prettiest kick. It almost reminded me a little bit of Chase McGrath's kick against Alabama to an extent. But he got it over the crossbar. It was good.
It's like it wasn't the prettiest kick, but for the fans, it was the greatest.
Oh, yeah. And I know that feeling all too well. I don't care how it looks, just get it over that crossbar. And so the Chiefs win the AFC title game 23-20, just a classic. And we're going to see that game for years to come, I think. Between those two, the Bills, and there's a variety of other teams there in the AFC that are going to be chasing. But right now, the AFC is going through Kansas City. And that might be the case as long as Patrick Mahomes is on top of this game, because Patrick Mahomes is that guy. And it's that Bruno Slonik asked, can he be the best quarterback ever in like 8 years? I'll say this. I think from a pure talent standpoint, I think he is. Now, granted, I know Brady has 7 rings, and I know that's, from a accomplishment standpoint, it's going to be hard to catch that. But you have to remember that Super Bowl rings are not a quarterback stat. What Patrick Mahomes does on a week in, week out basis is really unlike 99% of quarterbacks we've ever seen. And the impact he has had on the game is unlike very few quarterbacks we've ever seen. And he is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live, to ever walk the planet.
I think I think the point that makes Patrick Mahomes such an incredible quarterback, he makes really hard offensive plays looks easy, looks so you know you know, I don't know how to describe it. Like the way he throws the ball, it's so hard, but it's so beautiful because it looks like a sharp throw. Like it kind of
Yeah,
reminds me of Ronaldinho, the Brazilian midfield, the way he will dribble and kicks when he was in the highest in the Barcelona. That's what Patrick Mahomes does with the football. Throws so with such a sharp, such a you know dizzy with the ball.
absolutely. I mean, you got to remember who's a baseball player too growing up. So I think some part of his throw motion gets influenced by that. And really, he just is able to mix the best of both worlds. Um,
Do,
but
do you think having a baseball background makes you a better quarterback? I mean, we saw Patrick Mahomes, we saw Kyler Murray.
doesn't Joe Milton also have a background in baseball? I don't know if he does. He might, but
I
obviously, as we
wouldn't be
know, with his
surprised.
artistry, yeah.
I mean, I
I'm
wouldn't be,
not. I'm not comparing Joe Milton to those quarterbacks. Don't get me twisted. I hope I'm able to in a couple years. I'm
or
not,
maybe next year. Maybe he'll play like a Mahomes next year.
yeah, that if that happens, watch out, everyone else. But you know, anyway. Um, so let's obviously we're not going to go into a full on preview because I really want to save that for next week. Just give me your
For,
initial thoughts on the Chiefs
first
and
of
the Eagles.
all, hashtag. Let's talk about how this Super Bowl name should be. Should we rename it?
To the Andy Reid Bowl.
It should be the Andy Reid Bowl. That's no other, rename Super Bowl. It'd be Andy Reid Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what Andy Reid's going to be thinking heading into this matchup, going up against his former team, the team that fired him, and now he's gone to Kansas City. He's won a ring there. The Eagles have run a ring since he's left. It's almost a grudge match of sorts, you know? It's whether the Eagles are like, yep, we made the right decision leaving you, or Andy Reid's going to be like, nope, you've made the wrong decision getting rid of me.
Yeah, I think it will be so because it's a tie because Eagles got one, Andy Reid / Kansas City got one, so it's literally on a tie. So whoever wins this game will be calling the upper hand on this narrative.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the Brady Belichick thing to an extent, but it's very rare you see a coaching situation like this. Also, the Kelsey Bowl. Think about Travis Kelsey versus Jason Kelsey. There's that element of it as well that's really interesting. But I think honestly for this one, like we know how great Patrick Mahomes is, and really for him, this is all about getting another ring, trying to get closer to Brady, get one closer to Brady, get further up that list with multiple rings. But this is huge
Yep.
for Jalen Hurts.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes, if he wins the Super Bowl in the same category as Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, it'd be like,
Ben Roethlisberger.
yeah, but he'll have more Super Bowls than Aaron Rodgers if he wins that. So we can
Yep.
say Patrick Mahomes will be more successful than Aaron Rodgers if he wins the
Yep.
Super Bowl.
You're right. You're right about that. And also, to think about this, if he wins it this year, he would have done it without Tyreek Hill. Like he literally lost his best receiver, and he's just fine. He is just fine without him, which is saying something. I know he still has Travis Kelsey, and Travis Kelsey's the best tight end, I would argue, ever at this point. I think Travis Kelsey has an argument for the best tight end of all time. But still, his receiving room is average at best. So it's impressive what Patrick Mahomes is doing. But for Jalen Hurts in this one, think about his journey. He goes to Alabama. He's a 5-star out of Texas. He goes out, leads them to almost a perfect season, almost a national title game. They lose that last game against Clemson. He leads them back to the national title game the following year. They have a horrible half against Georgia. He gets benched, watches Tua take Alabama to the national national championship. Tua starts at home next year, but Tua gets hurt in the SEC title game. Jalen Hurts comes in, leads Bama over Georgia, and he transfers to Oklahoma, leads them to the playoff, gets drafted to the NFL. But a lot of people are saying, this guy's a running quarterback. He can't throw the ball. But now he's here in the Super Bowl and perhaps ready to complete one of the great comeback stories in sports.
I think this story encapsulates that you have to take it. What do you do on a college football Saturday game more than on pro day or this kind of this, because you have to analyze the part where you have to make hard decisions, where you have to play big games. And Jalen Hurts played in big games in Alabama, in Oklahoma. Lamar Jackson played in big games at Louisville, and those two were kind of snubbed by a lot of NFL teams. So I feel like it got a lesson. You have that, and I think Hendon Hooker will be in the same kind of category as Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. I think he'll be
I would love
snubbed.
that.
He'll be snubbed. He'll be snubbed, but he will. I think he'll find, if he is drafted by a good team, a solid team. Let's say he goes to the the Rams, a backup for the Rams. He can find a kind of like a solid team, Ravens per se, like not a chaotic team, but I think he can work. He can be like Jalen Hurts, because again, of course, Hurts and Lamar Jackson went to solid. That's why it's good to fall a little bit in the draft, to be drafted last, because then you can find solid teams that can give you more pieces to work with. And that's what Jalen Hurts found in Nick Sirianni and this Eagles team.
Oh yeah, and it's really great, great how that's all come together for him. And it reminds you, just when things don't go your way, you're gonna have times where you're gonna fall back behind. Just you keep on plugging, you keep on moving, keep on working, and Jalen Hurts has proven that you can come back from that. So the narratives here are going to be really good. I think also about AJ Brown, going from the Titans to the Eagles, and that's obviously how that's paid off here in his first year. I think about Brett Kern, the punter for the Eagles, for a long-time Titan, going to get his shot potentially at a ring. Trey Smith, think about Trey Smith for the Chiefs. They really had to battle blood clots in college at Tennessee. Now he's going to get a chance to play for a ring here. Just a lot of really cool and interesting stories up and down both of these rosters for the Chiefs and the Eagles. And obviously, we'll get into matchups next week. We'll get into how we celebrate the Super Bowl. But I'm very excited to see how this unravels in Arizona next week. Very quickly, some other NFL news. Pro Bowls this Sunday. Do we care? Do you care? I'm going to be honest, I don't care about the Pro Bowl.
I think the Pro Bowl, which is, I think this year is going to be in Las Vegas again.
Yes.
It should be a mid regular season event, like the MLB does, like the NBA does. It should be a mid, start 1 week. I mean, don't you cut one preseason game, cut another one, have 2 weeks of preseason, and have a Pro Bowl week, in the middle of the regular season. We gonna make more.
No, that would destroy the flow of the season too much, and no team's going to agree to that. Because what if a player gets hurt at the Pro Bowl in the middle of the season? Like that's, I know you have MLB and NBA, and that technically can happen, but players get injured way less.
I mean, can't you play in a flag football version or a lighter version per se? Maybe without.
That's what they're doing this year. It's flag football. That's what they're starting with.
I mean, can't you? My idea for the Pro Bowl is eliminate the O line and D line. Have just players throwing and trying to, and other players trying to stop the catch.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, yeah, are you gonna how do you get these players to go all out? You know?
I mean, in this kind of all-star pro ball kind of game, you don't go all out. It's more for the exhibition, more for the spectacle to see your player. Who who's going for the pro? It's not like I want to see you know Aaron Rodgers go all in, and I mean that's for Green Bay. Like the Pro Bowl fan or Pro Bowl viewer in TV probably wants to see a spectacle. Like let's say the All Star game in the NBA. Don't people want like a oh my god what a throw? I was you know I saw this in YouTube this week like a mid court throw by Luka Doncic. This kind of spectacle like a 80 yard throw for a touchdown, stuff like something that would not happen in a normal game. Like that's why take off the O line, let players throw, do something different. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they got to try something to get ratings back up because ratings have tanked for this event for a good reason. Just because it doesn't really matter. I'll be watching another event that we'll be talking about a little bit later that I do care more about, even though that also technically is an exhibition.
I think the Pro Bowl serves a point of resting players for the Super Bowl. I think the Super Bowl is such an important game that Pro Bowl makes a perfect timing for a rest because since it's your biggest sporting event in your country, you want the players to be 100%, and 2 weeks is better than 1 week to rest.
Oh yeah, like I'm not advocating changing that at all. And it's good that we have this event here at least as a stopgap. So I mean, I guess that is a point to exist, to be a stopgap. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I am going to care or necessarily really watch it.
No,
So
no. Maybe I'll watch some highlights. Maybe if on
if
with
anything funny happens, so anyway, so some interesting news today. Some new coaching hires. First and foremost, we have 49ers defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans to the Texans. I think that's a solid hire for Houston. 49ers obviously had a great defense this year, and the Texans needed some stability, someone younger. I think DeMeco Ryans could be that guy. And if they can pair him with a Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, that could be that could work because the Houston Texans have a lot of assets over the next couple of years to really rebuild their roster.
but also I think they found a good profile coach because the way they fired their last coach and looked like a little bit of non kind of giving a chance for African American coach. I think that's why they also more than back in their minds.
Yeah, I got to remember too. Ryan's also played for the Texans as well, so you're getting a former player in there. And think about this now: the Texans, they only started existing in 2002. Now you've been around long enough to have former players on the staff. But at least in this case, it's not as a guy who is new to that coaching ranks. Not in the case of the Panthers are bringing in former quarterback Frank Reich, who failed at Indianapolis. So I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of that hire. But I'm much more of a fan of this hire. The Texans, I think, may have a bright future depending on what they do at quarterback. Just my advice: avoid Will Levis. But someone's going to make that stupid move. Don't let it be you.
The more you say that, the more I feel like Will Levis will play better and better, and you'll be like, he'll be like on camera, "Hey, Nick Hill, shut your pee hole," like.
Hey, maybe this is all reverse psychology. Maybe we'll leave it. Maybe there's a part of me that's worried that Will Levis is going to get picked by the Titans. So the more I say that he sucks, and for some reason will get picked by Tennessee, maybe he'll turn out good. But
Yeah. It'll be like, okay, Will Levis, if you go for the Titans, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Hey, look, look. One of my favorite NFL players of all time is Derrick Henry, and he played for Alabama. So I'll root for anyone when it comes to the Titans. I'm just not sold. I will leave us as an NFL QB, but
but in terms of a hire, the thing is, defensive coaches are kind of, on the not on the trend right now. I think offensive coaches are being more successful. But if you like, the trick is, let's say the Bills are a perfect example. A defensive coach with a really good offensive coordinator. When you find when you hire a defensive coach, you need to make a really good hire in offensive coordinator.
Oh, absolutely, and that's my question here: who is going to be his OC? Um, because is he going to try to take someone from the 49ers with him? Is he going to have to find someone else to take with him? I think that is huge, especially when you're going to have to be developing a rookie quarterback.
Oh
So
yeah, definitely. I feel like
it'll be
when you draft a young quarterback, you need to make him develop in a way that he can upgrade.
oh, absolutely. But I think obviously this is a normal hire. Um, Now the other hire today, this one is gonna cause a lot of conversation because Sean Payton, former longtime Saints coach, Super Bowl champion, is leaving the Fox Sports studio to take his talents to the Mile High City and pair up with Russell Wilson and see if he can reteach Russell Wilson how to cook because obviously he couldn't cook this year. Um, Sean Payton to Denver. What do we think about this? This is
I
a
mean,
interesting one.
first of all, the Saints love that because now uh they're gonna have the 2023 first round pick. So they're gonna have another first round pick this year and a second round next year. So for a coach that was retired, they got a good deal. But in terms of the hire for the Broncos, they need to find an experienced coach to coach an experienced quarterback. That's the thing, because you know if one guy can really mentor and develop a quarterback, that's Sean Payton. Look what he did with Drew Brees.
Oh yeah. Um, here's the thing though. He only ever won one suit ring with Drew Brees. When I think they could have won 3 or 4. And you do have to question sometimes some of the playoff uh, coaching. You have to question some of the decision making. I think about like what happened in the Rams game a couple years ago. On numerous occasions, they couldn't build a defense worth of crap, and that constantly screwed them over year after year after year. Um, and right now, Denver has a really good defense. Um, so you better hope if you can keep that, and you can kind of right the ship with the offense. Maybe you can turn this thing around because I think Russ Wilson has talent. I don't think this past year was completely his fault because the offensive line was atrocious. You have to replace the offensive line. We know that Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton have talent out there at wide receiver. We know Javonte Williams, if he can stay healthy, is a talent at running back. But it's going to be up to Sean Payton to really get all those pieces to gel together because they did not gel together this year.
Yeah, I think they're getting a veteran coach because they try a lot of experience, like they try a lot of young coach and do experiments that didn't work. So they need to go all in and get a good coach because, as you said, how long this Broncos defense is gonna last? How long Russell Wilson is gonna last? And they have to make this contract work because it's a really high value contract.
Yeah, and you also got to think too: is giving up assets for a coach a good idea as well? I just don't know if I'm the Broncos, especially with knowing that I'm gonna have to make significant personnel changes this year to try to put us in a much better position. I just don't know if that was worth it, especially considering that you're not going to really be able to get all the free agents you want, considering that you are paying $245 million for a quarterback who sucked last year. So it's just a tough position. And I get it that the Broncos got to go big or go home at this point with the whole Russell Wilson contract, but I don't know if I'm confident in them, especially considering that you have to beat the Chiefs. You're going to have to beat the Chargers. And the Chargers just upgraded their OC with Kellen Moore. Um, Here's the thing. I think I'll say this as a side tangent. I think Dallas made a mistake getting rid of Kellen Moore. Um, because I don't think the Cowboys' offensive issues were his fault. I think those were Dak's problems because Dak wasn't throwing the ball downfield. And now he's going to have a quarterback in Justin Herbert who will throw the ball downfield. So I think Kellen Moore is going to be fine in Los Angeles. But that's just my 2 cents on that whole situation.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I feel like Kellen Moore, I think, was a great hire for Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's thankful for the Dax issues because he got a good OC. And I think Sean Payton is a Hail Mary kind of hire because you give up assets to have a retired coach, a coach that retired. So it's like,
You know what it reminds me of? Urban Meyer to Jacksonville. But
oh,
we know that Sean Payton can win the NFL, though. It's a difference. So let's just hope for Denver's sake it doesn't turn out to be another Urban Meyer.
no, I don't think so. I mean, the difference was Urban Meyer was a retired college coach that never coached a single not even a preseason game in the NFL. When you throw out there on a rebuilding team with a first year quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, DeMeco Ryans, he'll need a couple of years. He signed, what, a 6-year contract. So he's going to get a couple of years, I think, to fix that up.
Yeah, but that was about to happen. The rumors were like bound to happen.
Yeah. In some, not necessarily NFL news, but kind of transitioning back out into college. Just really fast. Stetson Bennett, unfortunately, was arrested the other morning in Dallas in public intoxication. Apparently, he was walking around the Dallas area, knocking on doors at 6 a.m. in the morning, intoxicated. Not the best look for the national champion quarterback. How does this affect his NFL prospects? And I think it really does, because I think Stetson Bennett, when you look at him, I don't see him as a starter in the NFL. I see him as a career backup. And NFL teams with career backups want a backup that does not cause problems.
It's like,
I think for Stetson Bennett, it could.
because like when you take a risk on a trouble quarterback that was really talented quarterback is one thing, like Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel, but like Stetson Bennett, it wasn't because of him that Georgia won. It was with him, was all the pieces that came together.
I'll give him a little bit more credit. And I just don't get me wrong, I've been probably one of the biggest Stetson Bennett haters on the planet, but he did help them beat Ohio State. Like that, I think without Stetson Bennett, they don't win that game. So I will give him that.
Yeah, but overall, he's not a once in a lifetime talented in quarterback position. He was competent, but not talented.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And just overall, I really hope, and I understand, obviously he's on a high right now. He's celebrating his national title, but I really hope that if there are issues under the surface there, and I don't know if there are, that he's able to get well, because I would, you don't want to see anyone's chance at the big leagues get destroyed because of personal issues. So even if they played for a rival school, so I certainly hope that Stetson will learn from this and strive to not let anything like that happen again.
But it's in his defense. I mean, he's just enjoying his now free time after with graduating college, and everybody has if that happened in Brazil, nothing, it would have been nothing.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. I mean, I've enjoyed many nights too, but I don't go around knocking on random doors at 6 a.m. in the morning.
No,
Like
I seen worse in Brazil, and nothing happened in terms of charges.
I mean, I guess it's partially just our Puritan laws, our Puritan culture towards drinking and all that, but that is what it is.
I think Stetson Bennett should be a good. I would have drafted him in the 6th round, definitely. Like, I would have drafted him if I was Dallas. Have him as a backup for Dak Prescott. Why not?
God, could you imagine Stetson Bennett being like the next quarterback for the Cowboys? How insufferable would that be?
Why?
Oh man, that would just. I mean, look, I've already had to deal with Stetson Bennett at Georgia. Put him, please. Like, imagine me having to listen to like Skip Bayless talk about Stetson Bennett as the Cowboys quarterback.
I mean, he's from Dallas,
I
so
mean, that would just. Oh man, I hope it goes to some small team. Well, I mean, no team is small in the NFL, but
I want to go for the Cowboys. I think it would be a good fit.
man, Jerry Jones would probably like him though.
I mean, Dak also came from a later round in the SEC. He played for the Mississippi State, so you wouldn't
Yeah,
be
but
the
Dak
first.
Prescott was like the reason why Mississippi State was any good at that point, you know? And then it's a bit of a difference.
But in the sixth round, why not? Also give a little, hey, Dak, your backup is a college national champion. Just I think Colin Cowherd made the argument, like, draft a quarterback every year now, to give a little, hurdle for your, starter to be, hey, there's a competition.
That certainly is fair enough, but with the lack of roster spots, I don't know if that's the wisest thing to do, but hey, you just never know. Um, let's switch it up again. Let's go off the gridiron to the hardwood because the Tennessee Volunteers basketball team, the Basketballs, they defeated number 10 Texas on Saturday, and they are now number 2 in the land, just behind Purdue. And
How
with
ironic,
Alabama, go ahead.
how ironic is being behind Purdue? That brings up memories from, I think, was like what, 2019 March Madness.
I mean, not to mention the football game.
Oh yeah,
Too,
the
Purdue. Yeah,
um, uh, Music City
Music
Bowl.
City Bowl.
It would have been a great matchup, number one versus number two, Purdue and Tennessee right now, for all the backgrounds in basketball and football.
Yeah, it's obviously it's still now the last day of January. It's going to be February tomorrow, so we are getting closer and closer to March. But you know, right now, Alabama, they were number 2 and they got blown out at Oklahoma on Saturday, 93-69. We do have to ask, for one, are Tennessee the SEC favorites right now? And two, has Tennessee proven enough that they are a legitimate national championship contender?
I mean, looks like it, but the question is, and we've seen this movie before, being good in the regular season translates into a good playoff run especially for a Rick Barnes team. That's the big question. Because we've seen this movie
Yeah,
before. It's called the 2018-2019 season, right, Nick?
right. But what I'm hoping here is when I look at the advanced analytics for this team are way better than those teams, especially on the defensive side. I mean, right now, according to Evan Mirakawa, 4 of the top 25 players in the entire country, according to advanced statistics, are volunteers. Julian Phillips, Sakai Ziegler, Santiago Vescovi, and Josiah Jordan James, all in the top 25 when it's for adjusted offense, adjusted defense. And if you know, since Josiah Jordan James has come back from injury, this team has been so much better. I mean, they have been so much better since he's come back from injury. And, outside of 2 clunkers in Colorado and Kentucky, and Kentucky's played a lot better recently. So really, Colorado's the true clunker there. Arizona, that game was a ref show. I mean, they've pretty much controlled the rest of their games. And they're just plugging along. We'll see how they have to handle success. I think over the next few weeks, I want to see that being at the top here doesn't get to their heads. You got a tough game tomorrow at Florida in the Swamp. You got Auburn coming to town with Bruce Pearl on Saturday. Can you handle success? Can you handle the pressure of being the number 2 team in the country? If they can, they might put themselves in a position to get that number 1 seed, and all bets are off from there. But I am feeling good about it. In terms of the SEC, they certainly got a great shot at it. I think Bama, though, I think that was a one-off. I think they'll be playing a lot better. and it's going to be a war when they come to Tennessee in a couple of weeks. I believe it's February 16th when Alabama and Tennessee plays. It's a Wednesday night game. It's going to be a big one when they show up in TBA.
I mean, imagine. I mean, it's going to be another high-ranked Tennessee and Alabama game, like in football last year.
Yeah, although I doubt if Tennessee won this one would storm the court again. I mean, it's yeah, that was a football thing. I don't think we would storm the court
I mean,
for
why
one right
not
away.
make it? Let's make a tradition. Every time Tennessee beats Alabama, storm field or the floor.
Can we throw the backboard in the river?
Mm. I mean, it would be closer. The from TBA to the Tennessee River is closer than the Neyland Stadium.
That's fair, and that'd be a lot lighter. I want a
Yeah.
little piece of the net to throw in the river, but
Mhm.
yeah. So Tennessee against Florida and Auburn this week. On the other side, though, with all the success the men are having, unfortunately, the Lady Vols have not been having this success. The last two games, they got blown out at home by UConn. It's a UConn team that's only had 7 players, and their best player was hurt. And Paige Beckers. Then last night they had a really tough loss on the road at LSU. It was like an 8-point loss. And it's not that losing to those teams is bad because they're 2 top 5 teams. But the Lady Vols now are 0-9 against ranked teams this year. They're 0-9. The Lady Vols aren't supposed to be 0-9 against ranked teams. And some of the more hardcore Lady Vol fans across Tennessee are some of them are calling for Kelly Harper to be fired, which is kind of surprising to me. I mean, Kelly Harper is a legendary player. She was on national title teams, but some of the arguments I'm seeing are that the team is stagnant, like it was with Hallie Warlick. That the recruiting isn't there. That the Lady Vols just are not on the level of UConn, of South Carolina, and some of them are calling for Cara Lawson, former Tennessee Vol herself, at Duke, to be hired to be brought back to Knoxville. It's I don't know if firing Kelly would be the right move here to fix Lady Vols. I think we honestly might have to consider the notion that the Lady Vols are never going to dominate again like they used to.
Yeah, I don't think this is as bad as Coach Harlick last year. That was really bad. I covered it, a lot of those games, and it was just really stagnated basketball. I would give her at least one more year, but and those Lady Vol fans, they're I would say Lady Vol fans are more passionate than let's say the men's football fans because they show up in good times and bad times, and they're always the same fans. Especially are they older age. We know how Tennessee the Lady Vols fans are the older demographic of Knoxville.
I'll say this: I think the Lady Vols might be in a little bit of danger, though. Not necessarily in terms of a team. I'm talking about program-wise, because just think about this right now. Right now, football extremely exciting. We could have a very exciting future ahead of us. The men's team, very, very good right now. Baseball, a top-tier program. The Lady Vols, if they don't find a way to reestablish themselves, they could get lost in the sauce.
It's like
I mean, until this past week, I mean, who was talking about the Lady Vols? And they won like 8 straight games.
and also it's probably the same stagnation like happens to softball. Is the probably the Lady Vols brand that was stronger not only in basketball, in softball as well. It was such a talented team in the mid 2000s. But in terms of the Lady Vols basketball team, Kelly Harper, I don't think he's recruited good to attract elite profile players because the fans, I think that's a problem. Like, as we said, when you have such a coach, they establish a culture for so long, it's hard to find a replacement. Let's say, Manchester United, they had, Alex Ferguson for almost 3 decades. How is hard is to find a replacement for a coach? They have been struggling for the past 10 years to find one. looks like now maybe on the right track, but still long way enough for the glorious Alex Ferguson days.
And you do have to ask, if they decide to move on from Kelly Harper, do you break ties with the cemetery and go outside? Because you do have to wonder, um, you know, hiring coaches that are going to be in the aura Pat Summit. It's just going to inevitably just constantly have them cause fans to compare them to Pat Summit, and they're never going to be able to match up with that because
Because it's been like almost going to be 11 years since Pat Summit stepped down. And
yeah.
now it's going to be, it's still in the second coach after her, went from Holly Warlick now to Kelly Harper. And that's a great question. Do you keep under her tree or do you go outside? Because a good comparison was like when Alabama, was on the Dom times, they went on a lot on Bear Bryant's tree. And then when they stepped outside to hire Nick Saban, that's where their success came back.
I mean, think about this. I mean, Tennessee to an extent, think about the type of guys we were trying to hire. Like when Philip Fulmer was AD, he tried to hire a clone of his and Jeremy Pruitt. He's trying to play 1990s football. That didn't work. Then Danny White comes in, he brings in Josh Heupel playing an ultra modern style football, and that's what's brought us back to success. You got to always keep moving forward. You always got to keep making changes, and it almost feels like the Lady Vols right now aren't doing that.
I mean, I think to some extent they're still stuck in the past. I mean, as great legacy as we always gonna honor. I love that we back Pat Week, and we always gonna remember her. But you said it perfectly. The Lady Vols have to move forward, and if Kelly Harper is fired or stepped down or does not continue as a Lady Vol head coach, maybe maybe they'll have to find a coach outside of the tree. And I think Danny White, with his fresh mind, might go after this new head coach for the Lady Vols outside of the Pet Summit tree.
Yeah, I mean, there'd be a lot of options out there. I think there's a lot of coaches that would be very attracted to coming to the Tennessee Lady Vols. I mean, literally, every day going to school, I drove by the Women's College Basketball Hall of Fame. Knoxville is the mecca of women's college basketball. Who wouldn't want to be the coach of the Lady Vols? If you are a women's college basketball coach, you want to be in Knoxville. And the Lady Vols, I think, could get practically whoever they want. I think there's a few coaches like a Don Staley who wouldn't leave South Carolina, for example. But I think you get a lot of other coaches to think about it.
I mean, why not? Um, why not Kevin McGuff? He's doing a tremendous job at Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State was never known for have a good women's basketball team, and they were up until last week the number 2 team in the country. I know they lost, but they're still number 10 team. Only 3 losses this year. Why not?
I mean, there's option there. I mean, first thing that comes to mind is the guy that we're looking at last time was Jeff Waltz over at Louisville. Now, I mean, Jason Wyrick would tell me, no, he's never leaving Louisville, and he probably wouldn't at this point. But I know we flirted with him last time, so could you go after him? I think of an Adia Barnes over at Arizona. Could we convince her to leave Arizona to come to Tennessee?
Or even more controversial hire, Kim Mully at LSU. I mean, she's undefeated.
She's from Louisville, from Louisiana. She played at Louisiana Tech. I don't think she's leaving LSU.
Yeah, I mean,
so she has that connection there.
I was gonna say, as much controversy and
look, I can't stand her, but if we could get her, I would absolutely take it. I mean, she's one of the best in the business for a reason. So
yeah, that's why Tennessee needs to go. Needs to find the best, because the Lady Vols are the standard. They have to go back to the way, like Alabama with Nick Saban. Nick Saban went to Alabama because Alabama was the standard in college football under Bear Bryant. They fell in the 90s trying to find the Bear Bryant replacement under his tree. They couldn't. They brought a coach that brought the excellence back. That's why the Lady Vol needs to mentality of.
Yeah, it, yeah. It's just really crazy to think about just how much because like the Lady Balls when they're not playing a top tier team, they've been great this year. But man, it's just all these tough losses they're taking. It's adding up, and I think they'll still make the tournament
I,
because remember
they,
the Lady Balls have never missed a tournament.
yeah, they almost did once. Do you remember that they
Yeah, I
under
almost wonder if it would be in the best interest of the program if they did miss it one year. Maybe that would be the okay. We got to change it up.
I don't know if it was under Coach Harlick Warlick. I
Warwick, yeah,
Warlick, but I remember we just barely got in.
and they shouldn't have been in that year. They got in off name alone. They did not deserve to be in.
I think
So
they lost to UCLA in March Madness.
yeah,
I'm
that team was not good.
trying to remember when did that
Was
happen.
it
I think
2017?
yeah, 2019. No, 2017. I believe so. I know it was under Coach Warlick that they barely got in.
Let's see. It wasn't 16, 17. Was it 17, 18? Yeah. Oh yeah, in 18, 19, she got fired after that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
just
They lost in the first round for the first time since 2008 2009. You know they you know they eh, it's just I feel like I would have give another chance for Kelly Harper, but the thing is, the only big game I think she won, as far as I remember, Kelly was on the road against Notre Dame back 2 3 years ago.
and South Carolina at home.
Oh yeah, that's true. South Carolina at home in
And they
2020.
made the Sweet
What?
16 last year, but remember they had to beat Belmont in overtime to do it.
Yeah. So we'll see what happened looking forward. I mean, they have to play. They still have to play tougher matchups in the SEC. I mean, South Carolina is going to be a hell of a game because they're still undefeated.
Yeah, I don't see them winning that one.
Yeah, just the parity is bigger than there was 2 years ago. I
Yep.
mean, they're gonna play Ole Miss on Thursday, and then they face on Monday, I believe, Mississippi State. So those two games should be, I think, two winnable games.
I would really hope so. As long as they're not ranked, we know they can win them.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens in the Lady Vols program. Still in basketball, I guess.
Yeah, let's head over to the NBA, where we had a pretty crazy situation on Saturday night. Excuse me. Um, the so the Lakers and Celtics were playing on Saturday Night Football, and LeBron got fouled heading to the rim at the end, but they didn't call it. It was an obvious foul, and then he was just furious at the end of that game, and they ended up losing. And like, I don't really understand why we're able to review some stuff in the NBA, but we're not able to review obvious stuff like that, especially at the end of a game. You know, like a call that changed the outcome of the game.
Yeah, it was just so obvious foul. It was so funny. Patrick Beverly showing the camera and like the ref was like the VAR of NBA now is in a photo camera.
Yeah, you know, because everyone's been saying NBA has been rigged for years. We know what happened in 2002 with the Lakers Kings, and it's kind of weird now seeing LeBron not get the whistle in that situation. But we'll see if we have situations like this come up in the playoffs because that's when really it would be a massive issue. Is if it affects a playoff series, let alone one regular season game. But also, I think perhaps even a bigger point of controversy is the All Stars for the NBA. And I have to take issue with one particular starter, well, lack thereof, because So there are 10 All-Stars. So in the West, you have LeBron, Curry, Luka Doncic, Nikolai Jokic, Zion Williamson. In the East, you have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But there's a name there that I'm not sure why they're not there. Um, where is Joel Embiid? Where's Joel?
Yeah,
I mean, Joel Embiid
he
is the most
definitely made
dominant center in the game right now. And he's averaging 33 points per game right now, 10 rebounds a game. He's averaging a double-double. Where is he? Why is he not starting? It doesn't make
isn't
sense.
the NBA All Star also by votes?
Yeah, too. I think it's part of it. And this is why we should not let fans choose. Because All-Stars is a part of the player's legacy. And,
Yeah,
letting fans choose this who, they don't follow basketball day to day like experts do, or the coaches or other players, because it's impossible. So, yeah, it is. I don't understand that. I believe they're going to announce the rest of the rosters in the coming days for the All-Star game, which should be coming up in a few weeks here in mid-February.
I like how the NBA All Star game is always after the Super Bowl. It's such a good move by the NBA.
Yeah, it's always the same day as the Daytona 500, I've noticed. The Daytona 500 is the week after the Super Bowl, and the All-Star game is always after the Super Bowl as well.
I think they all, because both NASCAR and NBA knows is that NFL dominates this part of the year, so it will be foolish for them to play such a high profile event right where the NFL dominates the kind of dominates the spectrum of sports in America in January, early February.
Absolutely, because now we're about to have a switch mode in terms of sports in America. Speaking of NASCAR, the engines will be revved this weekend at Los Angeles Coliseum for the second annual Clash of the Coliseum. Short track quarter mile, Joey Logano won the inaugural event there last year. It'll be an interesting event. I believe there's like 21, 22 cars they're going to be racing. So it should be a banger. Certainly, what I'm looking for. I'm looking to see how Kyle Busch looks at his new team at Richard Childress Racing in the 8 car. I'm looking to see how Tyler Reddick looks in his JGR car. And seeing if there's been any adjustments with the short track racing product. I think short tracks last year were perhaps the next gen car's weakness for NASCAR. So, hopefully that product improves this year. But I'm also interested to see this attendance, because last year the attendance of this was very good. I believe it had over 70,000 people show up in Los Angeles for a NASCAR race. Can they get that again this year? They have Wiz Khalifa as the halftime performer because they have like a halfway break in the race. Trying to appeal to some different audiences. NASCAR historically is a very country music sport. Has that southern aura to it, but they're trying to reach out to different audiences. So I'm really hoping that NASCAR succeeds in that, because it's not just LA this year that they're going to. Later on this summer, they'll be racing on the streets of Chicago in July, and that's one of the races this year I'm very interested to watch. I don't know. Did you watch the LA Coliseum race last year?
It's hard for me to watch NASCAR. Maybe this year I'll see if they, under the Star Plus that I inherited from my great friend Bruno Sonic, who has been saving me to watch the NFL. I'll see if they have the NASCAR on Star Plus, which is the ESPN Plus of Brazil.
Yeah, but anyway, if you're in America though, NASCAR is back this weekend, and speaking of like that Chicago street course, there were several rule changes that went into effect today. I think the absolute best one is no more stage breaks at road courses. Now, stages are still going to be a part of a road course. You can still get points for leading or being in the top 10 at certain points in the race. But one of the issues they had at road courses like Sonoma, Watkins Glen, Road America, places like that, was when you stopped the race a third of the way through to throw a caution. It broke up the entire flow of the race. It destroyed pit strategy. But now they're going to no longer throw those yellow flags at road courses. And I think that's going to help that product significantly bring back the strategy and really have a ton of strategy. Like, do you stay out and get those stage points? Do you come in and, try to play the long game for the ultimate win? So I think that's very, um, I really do think that it is a big thing. Also, some other small new changes. I don't know if you remember the Hail Melon, Ross Chastain and Martinsville flooring it into the wall to get into the championship four. NASCAR has banned that, so no driver will be able again just to floor it into the wall to gain speed for quote unquote safety reasons. But it was cool that we got it that one time. Less penalties for tires falling off on pit stops. They're increasing the amount of time you can repair your car, and they're confident enough that on smaller tracks like Martinsville, New Hampshire, Phoenix, that if there's rain at those tracks, that they might be able to race on them with wet tires. So trying to reduce the amount of impact weather has on racing, which is always a great thing because too many races a year get affected by rain. So very interesting to see how NASCAR plays out this year, and we'll start finding out how that's going to do this Sunday in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, NASCAR is always exciting. I remember being there in 2020, and it's always good to tweak the rules to make the game, to make the races competitive but safer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, here's one that's controversial in nature. So this has been going on for like the last week or two, and it really came to a head the other night. So this whole situation in the NHL. So this month is Pride Month in the NHL. A lot of teams they have rainbow themed out uniforms and stuff like that to show their support for LGBT youth. And there's one player for the Rangers. I think his name was Ivan Petrolov. He, for religious reasons, didn't want to wear it. And there was a lot of backlash for that, but then there was also a lot of support for that. And then the other night, the Rangers as a team decided not to wear their Pride uniforms. So now there's just a whole firestorm about this. And I just hate when stuff like this happens in sports because it takes the focus off what we come to think about. Is the sport, is the game, and now we're in the middle of the culture war, which is it is the most aggravating part of the internet.
If politics are aggravating, imagine in sports where it's only about winning on the court, field, or ice.
Yeah, we now is and now people are talking about were the Rangers in the right, were they in the wrong? I'll say obviously I support LGBT rights. I think everyone should have the right to choose who they love and all that. But we shouldn't force everyone to have the same opinion. Everyone has their own unique backgrounds, their own unique histories. A lot of the people in NHL are from different places across the world. They have much different opinions, much different cultural norms, and it's just pretty interesting to see how this whole situation has evolved with controversial issues, with expecting athletes to take stands on these. And I really I know it's been a trend for several years now to expect athletes to take trends on these, but on these issues. But I think we have to remember at the end of the day, they're athletes. They're there to do a job. And it's like, going to Walmart and going to the cashier and like, hey, what is your stand on X issue? Like, it's like, if I went to the gas station and I'm like, hey, I'm going to ask you a political question. If you don't support my opinion, I'm going to the gas station across the street. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's the same kind of thing that gets me nervous because there was a journalist here in a cable news channel, Sport TV, that were like, like kind of not asking but demanding Brazilian national team players that have a right wing opinion to make a statement about the riots that happen in Congress and stuff. Be like, they didn't do anything wrong. They have their opinion. Why do they make a stance about something that, of course, wasn't correct, was bad? But they don't have to make an opinion out of it just because they vote for a different political party than you have.
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue, and really COVID has absolutely exaggerated is a lot of people have forgotten what it's like to be able to tolerate different opinions. Um, and that's a sad facet of any society, and we'll just hope that things kind of come to a more stabilized place in the future. Because right now, I don't think it's in a good spot in any part of society, and this whole Ranger situation, unfortunately, is another side effect of it. And I really think anyone making content about this on either side, whether you are, like heavily criticizing the Rangers for not wearing those uniforms, or you are celebrating the Rangers not wearing those uniforms, and you think it's a middle finger to the woke mob or whatever. I think you really have to step back and think about what you're saying, and you and I think you're forgetting that those are humans on the other side with vastly different opinions. But just because they have a vastly different opinion, I don't know if that necessarily makes them a terrible person. But then again, this is different too, because like there's some people that I know that they don't want these certain people to have any rights at all, and obviously that's really bad. And it's just tough. It's a very tough decision, a discussion that really should not be had at an ice rink. That should be had in academia, in halls, in your dining rooms, not at a hockey game.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree with you, and
All right.
hopefully, definitely keep talking about things that happen on the court field or gridiron.
Yeah, but let's move over to some baseball. We're in the off season. We're in the doldrums of baseball. Spring training is a few weeks away, but we got to talk about our favorite institution, the MLB Hall of Fame, and baseball sports writers. So, Gus,
Yeah. There wasn't much. I guess wasn't a controversial ballot that it was years past. Only one player was inducted. Third baseman Scott Rowland. It was the only one. Todd Helton, VFL just came really short. Well, I think it was like one or two votes. Came up really short, 72.2%. You need 75%. The only big name that was on this ballot was Alex Rodriguez with 35%. He's not going to get in. With all this PD issues he had on his career, do you really think he's going to get in?
No, because baseball sports writers, they hate fun. They hate fun. Like Pete Rose, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I know they took steroids. So what? They have some of the most memorable moments in recent baseball history. So what? And they still would have had them without steroids. So baseball sports writers, once again, the most moralistic, upstanding, stick up their butts sport profession in the entire country.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to take him seriously because they make the decisions of the Hall of Fame, and baseball takes him that more seriously than the NBA or the NFL. Like you see, though, kind of issue controversy with NFL or NBA. It's just a good celebrating moment. In the NBA's controversy and debate, like you don't see that in the NBA and the NFL. The NFL famous celebration in the MLB is a kind of like controversy.
Yeah, and it's just such a good boys club. It's just too exclusive. Like here's the difference. Like the NBA is way too open. They really need to pare it down some to how they choose all stars, but you don't want to have it be just a collective group of sports journalists. And we're both of us are journalists. Like I respect journalists, respect all these guys. These guys are all successful. They've all gone to huge places in their career, but just because they have doesn't make them the ultimate authority on baseball. Baseball is a sport that's meant to be enjoyed by the masses. It is the American pastime. And I think, more people should have a say in who is in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah. First of all, how can the people who vote in the Hall of Fame did not play baseball? There should be a
Yeah.
kind of a like there should be kind of a rule that former baseball players should vote.
Well, I think it should be split. I think the journalists should have some votes, but I think also let's say 50% of the vote should be journalists, but the other 50% should be former players, all living Hall of Fame members and other selected baseball players.
Deal. I'll take that deal.
Yeah, because the way it's done now is just terrible. Also, this one is sad to report. Chip Correa, longtime announcer for the Braves on TV here. Long time was Fox Sports South. In recent years, Bally Sports is no longer going to be with Atlanta. He has taken a job to be the voice of the St. Louis Cardinals. He is from St. Louis, so obviously congratulations to him and his new endeavor. Well, I'll miss him calling Braves games. I know a lot of people hate on him, but I personally always really enjoyed Chip Correa. I think he has a great voice for baseball. He's really good at the big moments, and I'll definitely miss him as the Braves commentator.
Me too. I agree. I think he's done a terrific job, and I read his statement, and it makes perfect sense. When your hometown team comes to call you, you just go. Like he described, like I'm a St. Louis native. I grew up watching the Cardinals and dreaming of be a voice of the Cardinals. So I definitely agree with him. But he represented perfectly the voice of the Braves, and he has a good. His family is also into broadcast. Both of his sons are play-by-play announcers. I think one of them even joined Rock Solid Sports. Remember doing the stuff in 2020?
Yeah, I forget what his name is, but I remember he was because we did a Georgia preview.
That's true. He was such a fun guy to have. So I had his family have broadcasting his roots.
Yeah, definitely the Correas will always be remembered here in the South. That's for sure. And I know Harry Correa, of course, is a longtime announcer for the Cubs. So that might get a little bit awkward when there's Cardinals-Cubs games because those two teams don't like each other at all.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's the kind of it's like the big rivalry in Midwest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Last American note, trying to transitioning into soccer in Brazil. Here in Chattanooga, Chattanooga getting on the old two countries all sports. Don't do it that often, but Chattanooga FC actually hosted a friendly with MLS Atlanta United at home here at Finley Stadium here in the Scenic City, and they drew 3-3. All the goals were in the first half. Nothing happened in the second half, but obviously, great result for CFC to get a draw. Great result for Atlanta United. I don't know if they were completely into it. Obviously, it's just a friendly, it's a warm up. Still a great result for CFC.
I mean, Atlanta United right now is going for a rebuild. They just lost Joseph Martinez, which was the face of the franchise over the past 6 years. He won a title. He was there on day one on the first game, so it's hard for United. I think it's like a rebuilding mode. And first of all, you saw the first goal Chattanooga scored. It was a completely blunder by Brad Guzan. That was completely. I don't know what that was. I saw that moment. I was like, oh my god.
Well, there's a reason why Brad Guzan is no longer the head goalie for the U.S. team because he isn't very good.
Yeah, I think he's by the end of his career, a great career, but that blunder he made was just down like buffoonery.
Oh yeah, it's super bad.
But congrats, congrats. A great crowd. I saw a great crowd and again. And there's a great tradition that Chattanooga has been able to attract high profile teams to come play. They host, I believe, Dallas Atlanta back in 2017, even Real Betis in 2019. That was a great game. So it's good to have Chattanooga tracks high profile teams to come play even as a friendly. It shows how Chattanooga is really a kind of solid secondary market for soccer. Like Chattanooga is not going to be in the MLS, but at least is it taken seriously in the soccer world.
Yeah, and I'll be very curious to see how it evolves. I was talking about this with someone else the other day. So right now, remember we have two soccer teams right now in this market, but Chattanooga FC is by far the most popular team in the city.
Oh yeah,
I think the Red Wolves are going to struggle to ever eclipse that.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. It is a Chattanooga FC city. Those fans are passionate. They are involved. Even the current mayor, Tim, is the former president of the team, right, Nick?
Yep, Tim Kelly is the former president of the team. So,
yeah,
obviously he's very big into it. And Red Wolves aren't really even in Chattanooga; they're in East Ridge. So, and their stadium, it's a very nice stadium. It's in the middle of a gravel lot. So,
I mean, I know we kind of get off topic, but Chattanooga locations for stadiums are not the best. I'm just gonna say that, Nick. I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry.
There's no room because, we have all the mountains, you have the river, and there's stuff everywhere already. So, because here's the thing, the UTC Mocs honestly should get a new football stadium closer to the campus, preferably. But I don't know where you would build it.
Yeah, I remember when I went down there with my ex girlfriend, and she was like, "It doesn't feel like a college football stadium because it's close to a chicken factory, and it's not as a great it's a great stadium, but not a great environment stadium around."
Well, they are going to build they're going to build a minor league baseball park. They actually started work on it, I believe, next week. Right down the road from where I work down at Channel 12 on the south side of town, on the site of the former Wheelan Foundry Factory, which was a long-time iron factory in this town. But still, I don't think that's the best location.
So they're going to have two stadiums for minor leagues?
Yeah, well, that's for baseball.
But they have the lookouts. I remember the lookouts were near the interstate.
Yeah, well, that will no longer be a stadium when this new stadium is built. Rumors are that the federal government is looking to buy that land and consolidate all their services into one building. Is the rumor right now flying around?
So. Yeah, but it is funny because also in America, and as much as I love Rio Branco Stadium, it doesn't feel like a true stadium. That's the biggest knock that we have, especially from our rivals, across across town in Santa Barbara do Oeste. It's just, Rio Branco Stadium doesn't feel like a stadium when you drove by. It feels like just another building. It doesn't. When you drive by, it doesn't feel like you're driving by a stadium. It feels like you're driving by a parking lot or something. That's also been a knock. That I admit, Americana also doesn't have the best reputation of environment of a stadium.
I mean, honestly, the closest location I can think of near the campus would be Ingalls Stadium, but that's a historic park, so you can't tear that down.
But definitely great moments, that I had some good moments there. I remember calling the CFC Atlanta game in 2017, being on the field when Real Betis were playing there. But I feel like the Mogs also playing there, and it's just, as you said, it's hard to find locations for a stadium when your city's surrounded by mountains and so many nature places and historical places.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's why all the growth is happening in North Georgia and northern Hamilton County and Bradley County. It's expanding outward, but it's expanding outward in one direction because you can't expand west. So it's a tough location.
So you have real quick, speaking of expanding, I don't know if they happen in US, but there's complaints here from Santa Barbara do Oeste that they're mad up with the census because they're saying that the census numbers are not what they claim. Especially city council said the city has grown bigger than 200,000 as population, but the census says otherwise. It's just been a hilarious situation. Speaking of like growth of a city.
I mean, I haven't heard of any population controversies. I mean, the only thing you would hear is perhaps in a debate over illegal immigration,
Yeah.
maybe. But
Because here there's a lot of federal funding that involves the number of the population number is a lot of federal funding. So the more people you have in your city, the more funding. So that's why the city council in Santa Barbara, the West, are like fighting like hell and going to court to be like contesting the numbers.
yeah, well, the official number for Chattanooga as of the 2020 census was 181,099 people. So over 180,000 people in Chattanooga.
Like how Americana and and Chattanooga kind of have the same population. Also, Americana has 170,000 as a population, so
Yeah,
it's
I
kind
think
of
we're also
similar.
slightly bigger though, because you got to remember you have Red Bank, East Ridge, which are technically Chattanooga, but they basically are culturally. Um, so they add to the traffic and all that. So really, when you add those in, you add North Georgia, it's well over 250, 300,000 people around here. So traffic would suggest too, it's getting more and more populated.
I
So
can't do that because if I say that, Barbara raised it, but the people from Santa Barbara West will hate me because when you cross the Santa Barbara Avenue from one side to the other, like that's my part of town. Like that's very contested, especially with Santa Barbara City Council right now counting everybody on their unofficial census.
it's
So
like so Santa Barbara is like a small town as a community within Americana.
no, 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 no. No. They don't say that because they say otherwise. We're founded first. Americana was a village of Santa Barbara, they say. And we joke, say,
Oh, okay.
hey,
So they say so. It's like if Red Bank claimed they were Chattanooga, basically, or if like
yeah,
Oak Ridge came out and said, "Oh yeah, we're Knoxville." Like Farragut says, "We're in Knoxville."
yeah. It's like, okay, you founded first, but we grew bigger than you. That's kind of the, the things. Jokes aside and population aside, let's finish up with some Brazilian topics. Great game on Saturday. Brazilian Super Cup live up to the expectation between Palmeiras and Flamengo. Great matchup. Palmeiras wins 4-3. Great performance by Palmeiras. I think Abel Ferreira is incredible how he maintains his team playing the highest level. Now, especially when he lose key players like Danilo and Gustavo Scarpa to Nottingham Forest, and still not having a great striker, but still able to keep maintain a great performance against a loaded team like Flamengo with Gabriel and Pedro and Everton Ribeiro and Arrascaeta and Gerson. But and it was a little bit controversial because in the fourth goal, Flamengo fans really blame the goalie Santos because when the ball was coming his direction, the play looks like he was taking the hand out of the ball. So it's like the ball's coming here, he did like this. He lowered his hand and the ball went through. So Flamengo fans were blaming him. He's a good goalkeeper, but that's why Flamengo is trying to get Rossi from Boca Juniors. Just he's a good goalkeeper, but he's not a high profile goalkeeper. So, but congratulations to Palmeiras. They deserve the title. But it's like a recipe. Every time Palmeiras is back into a corner, fans are unhappy. They go out there and get a title. That's it's a
That's a good problem to have.
yeah, I'm jealous. Like as a Corinthians fan, like Corinthians like stagnated. Like fans get maddish, but we don't. We it's like Palmeiras fans are the so spoiled brats. They complain when they got two Libertadores titles, Brazilian national champions, Brazilian Cup champions, state Paulistão champions. They got every title they could possibly got in the last 3 seasons, and they still be bitches about it. They're so
Yeah.
spoiled.
I mean, also too that when I think about this result too, Victor Pereira. 0 for 1. 0
Oh,
for 1 so far.
oh, so much memes about it. The memes are like, "Oh, Vitor Pereira, how's your mother-in-law now? Is she okay? Is she good?"
There needs to be a Brazilian. Have you seen James DeRose on TikTok? Like he's this dude. Every time when the game ends, he's like, "What happened? How did you lose to X team?" There needs to be a Brazilian uh, version of that for him.
Oh yeah, definitely. He would be so funny. But yeah, it's true. Like Vitor Pereira right now is a little bit contested. I don't think he's gonna get fired. Even if he might get fired if Flamengo does not make to the FIFA Club World Cup final. If he fails to qualify in the semifinal. If he goes to the final, lose to Real Madrid, oh well, you're playing Real Madrid. It's a big, one of the best teams in the world. But Flamengo needs to make it to the finals in the FIFA Club World Cup, or else heads will be beheaded. I mean, Flamengo fans are like, already mad about losing the Super Cup, Brazilian Super Cup, especially to Palmeiras. The team that beat them in the Libertadores finals in 2021. So I really want Vitor Pereira to stay as a Flamengo head coach until he faces Corinthians. This moment gotta happen. All my friends are like, "Oh, he's gonna find a red card. He's not gonna." I mean, if he do that, he'll be the most cowardish attitude in sports ever.
Yeah, yeah. You got to face it. Lane Kiffin can come back to Knoxville and coach. He can go face Corinthians.
That's true. Like if Lane Kiffin that did the same thing came back to Knox and coach, Vitor Pereira sure can come back to Itaquera, and I'll be there one way or the other to see that moment because I gotta be there. And it was a discussion, Nick, on Saturday. As a Corinthians fan, do you want Palmeiras to win and see Vitor Pereira fails in his first title game, or do you want to see Flamengo win and Palmeiras loses a title because Palmeiras have been winning so much? It's a hard thing to pick.
Yeah, that's a lose situation.
It's like when Florida and Alabama were battling for national championship and in the top of the SEC. Like as a Vol fan, you want both to lose.
Yeah, yeah. Georgia, Alabama last year was a miserable watch because of that.
Yeah. So São Paulo State Championship Week 5. So Corinthians finally beat São Paulo after losing, after last year losing 3 games and tying one. We finally won in Morumbi, something that haven't happened since 2017. Great performance by the team. Great best performance Corinthians had all year. But it shows how Renato Augusto is so valuable for this team. Great performance. Santos is in a mess right now. He's in a mess. Another tie at home. I don't see a way out. Santos, I mean, if Santos qualifies for the quarterfinals, it's already a miracle because this team looks lost. They only have a one good player, Soteldo, which might be injured. So without Soteldo, I don't see them qualifying for our quarterfinals in the state championship for the third year in a row. And the fans are mad about. They're protesting, throwing eggs at car players, and being mad because
Eggs must be that much cheaper down there right now.
I guess so. I guess Brazil needs to import eggs to America. I guess.
Yeah.
You know,
So for context, there's an avian flu outbreak, so that's why we're having egg price issues here.
yeah.
So
So
there's being produced. But
I guess it needs to import eggs and not throwing eggs at car players. But
yeah, your eggs.
but Santos fans, I understand their frustration. Imagine being so stagnated, be hopeless for so many years, for the same tune for 2021 and 2022 and now 2023 is like hopefully we get qualified for the quarterfinals in the Che Championship and don't get relegated in the Brazilian national team, and maybe we'll do well in the playoffs in the Brazilian Cup or Sul Americana. But that's one way or the other. You gotta see a light of end of the tunnel, and the Santos fans are not seeing that. That's why the frustration comes so soon in the season because they see it's like I seen this movie already. It's called The Last Two Seasons. We start in turmoil, can't compete, can't qualify, and fight for a relegation in the state level, which is a lot of teams from second, third, fourth division nationally, not even have any divisions. Right now, they're in the bottom of their group. I know they have Bragantino in their group, which is another first team in the first division, but they have one team from second division, Botafogo, and Inter Limeira, which in the fourth division nationally. So Santos should be leading this group, not in the bottom. They're 2 points ahead of the relegation zone. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and wasn't Botafogo just relegated last year?
No, that's a different one. That's the one from Rio Ribeirão Preto. That's a
Okay.
different. There's another teams that have similar name, like Eagles. A lot of Eagles in basketball, football here. That like there's Botafogo in Rio, Sao Paulo, Paraíba. I believe I remember only those three, but like Vitória, there's one in Bahia, one in Espírito Santo. There's kind of the teams with the same name, like Atlético. A lot of Atléticos. That's Atlético Paranaense, Atlético Mineiro, Atlético Goianiense. So there's a lot of teams
Yeah,
with the same
kind of
name.
confusing. I don't know how. Kind of confusing. I guess you just have to remember. Okay, this is the Botafogo from Rio and Botafogo from
Yeah,
Sao Paulo. And
yeah. We kind of tend to memorize that is a different state. And just to finalize, Vasco, which was playing his preseason games in US, beat handily Inter Miami. It's not looking good at the beginning of the season. The loss to Volta Redonda. Their fans are mad because 777 Partners, an American group that bought Vasco and made a lot of promises, has not, I would say, delivered the promises, not got any big hires. Pedro Raul was good, a good player they got, but it wasn't they promised they last year they say we're gonna be in the same level as Flamengo by the time we get the club. It was a bold statement. They're not living up until now, so they need to go on the market and find some big player. Our fans are not going to be happy with you.
yeah, I mean, you do have to remember that they're just coming off of being promoted back into Serie A. They
Yeah,
were in because as you described to me in the past, they were kind of like the Vols. They had a great past, they fell off, and now
yeah.
they're rebuilding. And sometimes rebuilding takes a bit of patience. And I understand soccer fans might have less patience than any other fan base.
I think the big issue was the way 777 Partners came in with a lot of promises, a lot of expectations. When you give a lot of expectations, fans want to live up to it. Especially the last 7 years, last 5 years, Vasco has been in second division, then go up, then relegated, then go up, and you see Flamengo win title after title after title, and then you make a statement as the one executive of 777 Partners made, like we're gonna make the same investment and get players like Flamengo have. That gives Vasco fans hopes of a bright future. And of course, as fans, you want to see result right away. I'm not saying they're gonna fire Mauricio Barbieri but fans are like a little bit skeptical of those promises that the executives of 777 Partners made. I'm just saying that one player I even said on my radio show today, they need to get Felipe Coutinho because Felipe Coutinho is not happy at Aston Villa. It doesn't look like he's going to any other team in Europe. And he's from Vasco. He grew up as a Vasco fan. He played in the Vasco Academy. So Vasco right now, I said on my radio show today here in Americana, they need to get after Felipe Coutinho. That will calm the fans down and give a bigger name for the fans to cheer, especially a household name, like a guy who grew up in Vasco and played in the Vasco Academy, starred as a Vasco player.
Yeah, it's always a good move when you have dissension in the ranks. Go out and get a homegrown guy. That will immediately calm your fan base down for the time being.
Oh
Especially if
yeah,
he's a proven commodity.
that's true. That's what I say. Like Corinthians was after him. Like, of course, would be a great hire for Corinthians, but he's not identifying Sao Paulo. I don't see him being identified as a Corinthians player. Like he played great in Vasco back in 2011 when he started. He was sold to Inter Milan, but he always said he would come back. I think that will be the time. 777 partners should make a move, trying maybe find a player in here, maybe in Genoa that he one of their teams they have, maybe on a loan. I don't know. Find a way, but for them, getting Felipe Coutinho will calm the fans, will give them something to cheer on, and hey, we found a high profile guy that you guys were promising us.
Absolutely. It'll be very interesting to see because, I mean, this is a huge year when you're back in the top of the leagues and you with a new investment firm behind you, an American investment firm behind you. And obviously, we've talked in the past about how, could Vasco be a link to American audiences and other audiences abroad for
Yeah.
Brazilian soccer? As they get a big player like that would help.
Yeah, they just had a good preseason tour down in Florida. They went to Orlando to play River Plate, and they went to Fort Lauderdale to play Inter Miami. So they are trying to get the brand to America slowly. I mean, Florida's a good way to start when you play preseason games there. But if you had a Felipe Coutinho, maybe that would attract more, more attraction. But I know it's now should be less about attraction and more about getting results on the field, because that's what Vasco fans want. Because and the way they got promoted, you have to remember they were the last team to be promoted. They were a team that were so hard to see because there were so many issues. But I will see what happens to Vasco. I mean, they have a big matchup, I think, this weekend, like a derby this weekend, I believe, against I think Flamengo in a couple of weeks. Fluminense, upcoming team to play. So it's going to be a hard, a hard schedule for Vasco. But I think they're going to go. They're going to improve eventually. But I think the fans are. I don't know if you're going to have the patience to it. But that's it for Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, episode 62. And next week, it's going to be a little different with all football, right, Nick?
Yeah. It's we got one more game to pick. It's going to be a bit of a super episode, if you catch my drift. Super Bowl edition. We may not be on Radio Row down in Arizona next week, but we'll be there in spirit with our Super Bowl preview show next week here on Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, as we get you ready for the Eagles and the Chiefs. Also, basketball, whatever else happens, soccer down in Brazil, we'll have you all covered. For next time, Gus Tomazeli down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I, Nicholas Hill, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the United States, and you've been listening to Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only podcast concerning both American and Brilliant sports. Y'all have a good one.
Y'all say it.